Also, if at any point you see me going off camera, it's because I have my toilet paper roll that I'm blowing my nose with. Because, of course, on the day that we're doing a doubleheader is when I sound like Squidward from SpongeBob. So, just how it goes. What's up, everyone? I'm Alex Lieberman.
Yo, this is Jesse Pujji.
And this is The Crazy Ones. What's up, Crazy Ones listeners? This is Alex.
Hello. This is Jesse.
Joined by my co-pilot, Jesse. As I promised last episode, we're going to be trying some new shit this year. And this is a new format we're going to try out and see how it lands. So after you've listened to the episode, shoot us an email at thecrazyones@morningbrew.com and let us know what you think. Rather than the classic style of 3 topics, 45-minute roundtable discussion, we're going to focus on one thing, go deep in that. And then make sure you listen to next episode that comes out because we're trying a new format there where we introduce a guest. So let's do this damn thing.
Here we go.
Okay, so I posted or tweeted a tweet 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was titled 8 Self-Hating Beliefs That I've Reframed into Self-Love. And I wrote this thread because I'm a journaling guy now, and I've been journaling for the last month or so, and it's been great. And one of the topics was...
I can't get into journaling, by the way, just a sidebar.
I couldn't for the first 29 years of my life. And then I don't know what... I really believe in like habits that have a trickle-down effect. So I've gotten really into health and wellness over the last 2 or 3 months. Got a nutritionist, got a trainer. My whole view was like, if I could get disciplined about my food and exercise, it would have an impact on other things. So this may be mental or not, but now I've gotten into the habit of journaling after that happened.
How'd you get into it? Like, what'd you do?
How did I get into journaling?
Yeah.
I went online. I searched journaling prompts. I also just brainstormed some prompts. I made a note with 50 prompts so that it decreased the friction where every day I don't have to think about a new thing to write about. I put a 30-minute block on my calendar every morning where I turn my phone on, the Freedom app. Can't even do anything on my phone. It's useless. And so then I just write for 30 minutes. I have my seat right by our window that looks out of our place.
Yeah.
You see the New York City skyline. And I just write for 30 minutes.
What's the app called? I got to get that app.
Oh, Freedom is great. So it's on your computer or your phone. You basically make a blacklist of all of the things that steal your attention. So text message, Slack, certain websites, certain social media apps. And so then I go to the app every day during times of focus. I hit like start and you select the time and you go to access any of these things. And it basically just comes up with the freedom screen saying that you've been freed.
I love it, dude.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah,
so that's how I got it.
That's helpful. I'm going to try. And then what do you do with the journaling? Do you do anything or you just learn?
I haven't done anything with it other than it forces me to be reflective. I've saved all of them in Evernote. And the range on these is crazy. It's like I've got everything from what are all the ways I think of business ideas? And for 30 minutes straight, I just jotted down every way I could find business ideas to what are the fondest memories of my dad to if I wanted to write a Pixar movie. And the one rule is it has to have a lesson as a through line through the whole movie. Write a short movie. And so I've done all 3 of those in the last week. And it's just fun.
Yeah. All right. Well, sorry. Go back to so you wrote about self-hating versus self-loving beliefs.
Yeah. And I wrote about this because I think I've told you about this, but right after I moved out of the CEO role for Morning Brew, I would say I was like kind of the most self-deprecating and self-conscious I'd been in my life. I like totally lost my swagger. Mm-hmm. And so I think part of my journey was like figuring out what were all these self-limiting beliefs I've had. And so I wrote them down, and then I've tried to figure out like how do I turn those actually into things that serve me in my life. So should we just run through them and just see where it takes us?
One quick thing before we do those, like I like self-limiting beliefs. I don't know. Should we spend a minute on that? Like, why do people have them? Or like, what's your? I have my thoughts and experience with it, but
yeah, I mean, I actually will explain what I think my self-limiting beliefs are. Like they all fall into a similar bucket, which is in my professional life, I have an image of the people who I look up to that I want to be more like. And I think my comparison to these people, from like the best entrepreneurs of all time, like the Musk and the Bill Gates, to even my co-founder, Austin.
Right.
These have always been my reference points. And I think the reason I care a lot about being more like them, honestly, just goes back to like when I was younger and not feeling like I belonged.
Right.
And so like I need that validation from the people that I really want to emulate. And so my self-limiting beliefs, I think all are bucketed into things that I feel like these people have that I don't have, which means I am not enough.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I think that I've told you about the upper limit problem stuff, right? Have I ever told you that? There's this book.
I think you have, but just define it again.
Yeah, so there's this book called The Big Leap. I mean, one of the big things with all these upper limiting beliefs is like, and I've never done therapy, but I've done, obviously been coached heavily, which is very similar. And a lot of it is you just explore your childhood and sort of different things you learned. By the way, one time I asked my coach, I'm like, if you wanted to change someone's life the most you could in the shortest period of time, what would you do? And he had a very good answer. And it was...
What was it?
I would, in the first... You have 30 minutes and you have to change someone's life. He goes, I'd spend the first 5 to 10 minutes trying to drill down. And every human has basically 1 to 3 core beliefs that were like ingrained to you as children in some way or another through some set of trauma experiences. Could be anything, right? And then I would try to get them to see that the opposite of that belief is just as valid as their belief. Like try to get them to basically like go, not that they don't have to stop believing it, but they have to see that like another way could be wrong. So for me, for example, one of them was like, immigrant parents, like my dad was a businessman. It's like money is success, security, money is good. Money is, and he like drilled into it and he's like, but there's people who make less than you or have less than you that feel way more secure, way more happy, way more successful. And I'm like, yeah, you're like, I totally saw it intellectually and he's trying to get me to believe it, insides. And that was really hard. Like it was just really,
that's
really hard.
always the hardest thing, right? It's like rationally, like it takes so much time for the body to actually catch up to the brain when it comes to knowing what probably is right for us.
But anyway, so I think a lot of limiting beliefs come from there. And then the upper limit problem, there's this book called The Big Leap. And the way that he frames it's super cool. He basically says like in your childhood, your like happiness or whatever satisfaction thermostat is set by your parents and caretakers by a whole series of different things. Anytime you get above your temperature of happiness, you will actually do things like self-sabotage or, a series of behaviors to bring yourself back into the zone that actually feels comfortable for you. And you'll do the opposite too. Like if you have a really bad set of events happen to you, you'll do these things to bring yourself up, right? But the more common thing is, hey, I'm like, and there's all these fundamental beliefs. I'm not worthy. I'm not supposed to be here. If I do this, that's going to, I abandon my family. There's 4, I forget exactly what they are, and once you learn this framework, at least for me, I then notice it everywhere. A really good thing happens in my life, and I start to worry about something bad is going to, anything that brings you down a little bit. And so I think the core of self-limiting beliefs are actually, in my opinion, the upper limit problem. I call them, like some of my friends who know this framework, and I will I'll start texting you going, I'm upper limiting today. Like things are going well, and I'm creating things to be worried about, or the thoughts going through my head are bringing me back down, as opposed to enjoying being up and being high.
It's such a classic thing that I've experienced. Like even recently, I've generally felt like things are going well. Like I feel really good about the direction of the show. I feel really good about just like my family. I feel good about the stuff that I'm building on the side. I feel good about Morning Brew. And always the first thought that comes to me is things are too good.
Yep.
Things are too good right now.
The other shoe gonna drop.
Something bad has to happen. And honestly, like and I think the place where something bad happens, like where my brain goes, is like, it has to be something with my health. Right. Like my health, there's going to be something that comes up with my health because everything's too good right now.
But even that worry, just to be clear, even that worry you have is a form of you upper limiting yourself.
Totally.
Even if the bad thing never happens, the fact that you're giving cycles to worry about is like, oh, I can't be this happy. I got to lower this a little bit. It's too good. And I think it's a really powerful, once you learn it, and I wrote a thread about it on Twitter at some point, it's such a powerful paradigm because you'll notice it all the time. And a small example, someone gives you a compliment and you're like, oh, no. Like, it's not me. It's somebody else. You'll misdirect that or push it to someone else.
I want to go into some of these like self-limiting beliefs in a second, but what is your strategy now for basically when you know you are upper limiting to not have it hold you back? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, well, so the book actually has stuff, and I did this for probably a year. He has a mantra, and I could probably remember it because I reminded myself of it twice a day, and it was like, I am like, it's some affirmation, right? It's like I am successful I'm successful in my, I'm happy with my success and letting other people be more successful, and I want to bring more love and success into the world, or something along the lines of like kind of raising yourself to being like, it's okay to have that thing. I think typically if I notice it, it's typically like I'm feeling threat from somewhere, I'm scared, and I'll usually do some breathing, or I'll just try to say it, like even just going, oh, I think I'm upper limit, like I think I'm trying to bring myself down right now instead of enjoying it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay,
all right, let's get into yours.
Let's do it. There's 8 of them, but because you are now in my brain the chronic late person, and we only have 28 minutes left, and I am publicly shaming you to see if that leads to behavioral change over the next few weeks. We're going to just pick the best ones, or the ones that you find most interesting. So I'm going to start, and once you feel like we've covered one, it's fine. Just like be like, we're done with that. We'll move on to the next one.
For the record, you needed to record 2 episodes, and therefore we moved up an hour into an otherwise busy schedule.
Yes, but a commitment was made to that time. It's so funny. I say this also in jest because I not to say you're late in other things you do, but for the longest period of,
by the way, for what it's
okay,
worth.
Okay.
So.
I didn't know, but for I would say for the first 25 years of my life, I was always late. And I don't remember actually what happened, but like there were a few events that happened that I started really feeling bad about the impact it had on other people. So this is only a change in the last year. Before that, I was incredibly selfish with my time.
Yeah.
Okay. So first belief, great entrepreneurs must be deeply opinionated to lead well and take big swings. And so then the self-critique I have of myself is I don't have strong enough opinions or enough contrarian views. And so like that was I would say something that I've always felt self-conscious about, because within the context of Morning Brew, I always felt like my co-founder seemed way stronger in his views than I was. And it always made me wonder, if I didn't have enough strong views, does that mean the vision for the company wouldn't end up being mine because I'm not standing for enough things or for enough points of view?
And so how'd you change that to self-love?
Yeah, so the way that I've thought about it or reframed it is I'm open-minded, and that actually is a huge benefit because it creates safety for others. People know when they talk to me that I'm not going to judge what they're going to say. I'm not going to say it's wrong up front. I'm going to try to think through it with them, and that I have the capability of taking bets once I'm informed and they're needed, and I don't have to have a strong view on everything. And what I'll say is like this plays into like a broader framework that I think of, that I think there's this kind of like x-axis and y-axis. I think there's a y-axis of you're either highly opinionated at the top or weakly opinionated at the bottom. And then the x-axis is on the far right, you're closed-minded, and on the far left, you're open-minded. And so I think most people fall into 2 of these, whatever you want to call quadrants. I can't remember geometry or math or whatever. First, I think people are either very close-minded and strongly opinionated, or open-minded and weakly opinionated. And my view is the sweet spot is kind of the old adage of strong opinions loosely held, but I think it's very hard to achieve. And I felt self-conscious that I sit in the open-minded, weakly opinionated quadrant.
Do you think you actually sit in that though?
I don't feel like I have that strong of views, and I get very self-conscious about it. What's been your experience with me?
I think you have quite a few perspectives. I think you lived through a lot, and maybe the way you're defining perspective. Like, I think that's another thing we do. People like entrepreneurs beat themselves up on is like, I had this period too where I was like, I don't have a passion. Like Bill Gates was passionate about software, and somebody was passionate about flowers, and somebody was passionate. I was like, I don't have a passion. What's up with that? Like. And it took me a long time to go, no, like I do. It's like business entrepreneurship, it's leadership, it's people. Like it's not like a thing. It's not a specific product or product. So I feel like you have opinions. They may just not be on the future of journalism. Maybe they are.
Totally.
But you walked in with a lot of predictions last time we chatted, and you have perspective on how certain people do things or how they want to live their life or what to do around different problems and situations. So I'm not even sure I agree with the premise.
And again, maybe some of it comes back to like we're always anchoring based off of other people.
Right.
And so it's like maybe even just my co-founder sits far on the spectrum, and so relative to him, I don't feel like I'm far.
Right.
But that doesn't necessarily mean I don't have opinions.
Yeah, I think that's a huge. I mean, one of the things I've told you, like Nick and I obviously worked together for 20 years, including starting Ampush, and there's a lot of now he's working on something and I'm working on something separately, and there's him and I are still best friends, so we'll talk a lot and we'll go, man, I didn't know I had this gear in me because you were always doing that gear and I always thought I didn't have that gear, and now I have it. And he's like, I can sell, Jesse, like, but I'm sitting next to you and you're such a good salesperson that like I always let you sell. And so I think there's a ton of that
true.
Sort of relative to your co-founder especially.
To your point, it's like something that I've found is like a consistent thing that's said to me when I'm just helping other founders work through challenges is they always are like, wow, it's fascinating how your brain works, like your ability to break down these problems in such a clear and simple way. And the reason I say that is not to brag. It's actually because for the longest time, I felt like I didn't think about things in a analytical enough or simple enough way because my view was like, that's always what my co-founder was great at. And so it's just very interesting when you pull yourself, you create a little bit of distance from your business, what you find.
Yeah, I think that's right. All right, what's the next one? Okay,
number 2, the belief is you must be a horse with blinders, maintaining deep focus for a long time. The self-critique I have of myself is I'm distracted to the point of procrastination and lack of prioritization. And the reframe is I'm creative and always think of new ideas. This can be maximized if I find a great operator. But what I'll say is like, I feel like part of me is like playing it safe and shorting myself by saying this can be maximized if I find a great operator.
Right.
I'm basically just assuming I'm shitty at focus. I'm shitty at operating. And so I need someone else. Like, I feel like that is the easy cop out.
Right. Oh, this is such a good one for me. I have the same exact one. Have you ever done the Enneagram?
No.
Oh, dude, we got to get you to the Enneagram and talk.
Okay,
Enneagram
I'll do it.
on the
yeah,
thing.
I'll
It's been a crazy tool. It's like, I like MBTI also, Myers-Briggs.
I haven't done that either.
You haven't done that. Oh man, you would love these things.
We should do an episode of just doing these tests.
Yeah. We use MBTI a ton at Ampush, and then my coach introduced me to Enneagram, and that's like, my type. It's so interesting. It's a funny story. Is like, I took it the thing, and my type is like it's called the enthusiast. It's like excited, loves a shiny object, gets excited, and then like kind of falls off or like gets distracted easily, frays easily, and like literally the examples they gave, some of them are like, you're the kind of person who goes to an ice cream restaurant or like an ice cream store and you have to order 2 flavors because you can't just settle on one. And I literally I do that to this day. Or like my entire life,
incredible.
I've bought my wife 2 cards for every occasion because I'm like, well, like I want a funny one, but I also like want a one that's like really sweet. And I've always bought her 2. She has 2 cards for every single occasion.
At first I thought you said 2 cars. I'm like, wow, you're a good husband.
2 cards, one goofy. Anyway. And it's so funny because my brother-in-law did it and he's the same type as me. He's also an entrepreneur. And we had a phone call about it. It was like kind of happened around the same time. And I was like, oh God, I'm never going to be successful. I don't know how to focus. You clearly have to focus. Look at all these people.
Exactly.
Look at Bill Gates. Like they're all these billionaires.
Yeah,
we've
clearly thought about the same things, but you've explored it more.
And but hold on, this is the best part. He was like, I don't know if he talked first or I talked first. He's like, I'm so excited. This is who I am. Like, and he flipped it completely on its head and it sort of blew my mind. He was like, I need to figure out a way to take advantage of this unique enthusiasm and ideation I have because this is who I am. And I want to build a business that like, I want to help myself figure these things out to be this way. I'm going to like lean into this. This is a strength, not a weakness. And so it's just so funny because it's the exact same thing. It was just one of us viewed it as a strength, one of us viewed it as a weakness based on some stories we held about what's what. And I think it's a real one. I do think a lot of this, like a lot of self-hating and self-love is about grace with yourself and just being comfortable being like, this is who I am. I mean, a lot of Gateway X was designed around this issue. And I find myself, I've told my coach, I'm like, this is way better. Dude, when I was running Ampush, I would distract the hell out of the team because I would come up with new ideas and like, let's go do this. Everyone go in this direction. And they'd be like, Jesse, we just went in this direction. What are you talking about?
Yeah, you and I are so similar in that regard.
And so I'd say the setup today, like having the right types of people around me in those leadership roles. I sent you like the investor overview we did for Kahani. And it was all Knack. It was all the COO who's like, he's a badass. Like he put that together, but we're just very different. Like our strengths are in very different places. So I don't think it's a cop out. I don't know. I don't think it's a cop out.
Yeah. And I think there's probably a reason that the way I'm thinking about like what does chapter 2 of my career look like is quite similar in structure to what you've done with Gateway. Just because,
by the way, one thing that might, like I saw Rick Elias do this and it might help you circle the square is just because you're not the person who has to quarterback everything doesn't mean you're not the person who drives accountability throughout the organization.
Yeah.
So that's a big difference. I still, to all the things are accountable. I look at the numbers. I ask people like questions about
Yeah, explain what that actually means in practice.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Rick do it. It's like he's lets people run with things and drives them, and he's looking over everything. But you spend time with him, he'll look at your P&L in 15 minutes, and he'll ask you 10 hard hitting questions, or he'll ask you your priorities, and you'll have a very clear sense for the priorities. So he sets the tone for culture and what's important and what's not important, and what are the expectations. And so I don't think. I think that is still an important part to retain as a leader if you want to, Elon has to do those. I mean, clearly he must have lots of people around him doing all the day-to-day stuff, but he doesn't absolve himself from that stuff. And so I think that at least for me is how I circled the square on this one.
I like that.
And didn't give myself the cop out. I'm like, no, I'm still accountable.
Totally. Okay. So the first one you don't necessarily agree with. You think I have opinion. Second one, you think the building the infrastructure around yourself so that it respects kind of all this energy and creativity actually has validity to it. Third one,
and hold on, second one of the last thing, just for anyone listening, there is a spectrum to these things, right? Like if you're so afraid you can't, like I've met entrepreneurial people at Twitter, they'll tweet me and they have 10 ideas in 10 days and they don't make progress on any of them. Like that's an extreme version of the same type 7 behavior. Like my type is a type 7, the enthusiast. The other extreme is you or me. Like we started companies, like we've like, so we need to hone ours and kind of like improve it and be mindful of it, but it's not so crazy that it needs a wholesale change.
Yeah. It makes me think of like the kind of the age old question of like, do you spend time strengthening your strengths or strengthening your weaknesses? And my view has always been you triple down on your strengths and you improve your weaknesses just enough so that they don't hold you back from your strengths.
Totally. Or from what you want.
Okay. Exactly. Number 3, the belief is being an entrepreneur means spending time on things you don't enjoy. The self-critique is I don't work hard on things that are not interesting to me. The reframe is my body keeps the score and allows me to get excited about the journey when the destination aligns with my values. And so just to give context here, by the time that I had transitioned out of the CEO role at Morning Brew in April of 2021, very honestly, I was working less hard on the business. I'd say part of it was because I was dealing with my own things in life, anxiety, OCD, but also part of it was I felt like I lost some of that fire that propelled me in the early days, and I wasn't sure why. And at least one of the ways I thought about it is I just wasn't loving the work that I was doing, and I couldn't motivate myself to do it. And it was a mind fuck for me because in the past, even if I didn't love the thing I was doing, I still worked really hard on it. I still had that fire.
Right.
And so then I guess my question is like, how do you think about when you not enjoying doing the thing still warrants you working hard on it versus when it may actually be a really good sign that you're not working on the right thing anymore?
Oof, getting deep here. I mean, so the thing I was taught, which I very much subscribe to, and I had a similar experience to you, is there's 5 types of motivators. There's fear. There's extrinsic, money, titles. There's intrinsic, like beating your own score. There's play genius, which is like, oh, this is just fun. I'm having a blast. And then there's like love, and it's sort of like the empathic love. It's like the love of the human experience, helping the human experience. And we all use all of them all the time. But we tend to default to a few of them. And especially entrepreneurs, we love fear. We're addicted to it, right? The most classic example is like Travis Kalanick, like chip on his shoulder. He's got to prove himself to the world, right? And one of the things that happens is when you have success for entrepreneurs, you go, I don't feel scared anymore. So the different people do different things. Like, some people go, I got to set the number higher. I'm going to keep setting the number higher because, I'm fine here, but I got to look to that guy who makes all this money. I'm not that guy yet. Or in Travis Kalanick's case, some people would say he subconsciously sabotaged his way out of this job. Like he hurt himself to the point where he had to start another company and he had to do it again. And so Fear is the most common. By the way, it's the most effective, so I'm not judging fear, right?
So fear is considered the most effective?
Yeah, you put a gun to your head, you're going to run faster than you've ever run. But the downsides of fear are that they leave a negative residue on you and others, and they're not sustainable, right? And like they use Bill Gates as this example. He was the fear-driven guy, and then he became the richest man in the world. I was like, I'm bored, and then he jumped all the way to empathic love. I'm going to go cure polio. That's what's next for me, and that's what has sustained him actually longer than Microsoft sustained him. So the other downside of fear is it's not sustainable. And so when I hear your version of this like hard work and all these various things, it's like, well, especially first time entrepreneurs, anyone listening, like we did everything and anything. I did anything and everything. You did it because all we were like, I have to be successful. I'm so scared this is going to fail. It doesn't matter. I'll grind through anything. Right. And I think, I don't know that there's another way to do it. Maybe if you're super meditative, whatever. I think as you think about the second time journey,
it has to change.
It has to if it either, well, there's two doors I think people choose. One is, dude, Alex, why aren't you a billionaire, bro? Like, what's up, man? Come on. Look at all these other guys. There's some Zuckerberg was worth like 10 times you by the time.
Right.
And you're like, oh, I must beat Zuckerberg. And you get even bigger fear. No, seriously, I think a lot of people use it. A lot of people motivate themselves that way. I'm not judging it. I'm just saying it has the same, that's the way they create sustainability is they keep moving the goalposts. What I've tried to choose, and I'm not perfect, I choose fear all the time or I end up in fear constantly. But the thing I've tried to make more of is player genius and in some ways empathic, the love, the like what human experience can I improve? Can I teach other people how to be great leaders? Can I coach my Gateway X CEOs? That really lights me up. And then the play genius stuff, like the best example I can think of there is Warren Buffett, who like clearly the guy just loves what he does. He doesn't care about the money. He's like, oh, this is fun. I get to think about companies. I get to run this thing. I wake up every day. I eat McDonald's and I do my thing. And so I think a lot of where I've spent time with Gateway X, and it's a little scary. You have to trust it, is truly trusting that the things that that I enjoy, my zones of genius, are, if I do them really well, they're going to lead to a lot of success. And I don't need to look at the books in the business because I look at the books, but I don't need to keep the books in the business because that's boring for me. I don't need to set the investor materials together because that's boring. This is not what I want to do. And so I have to solve for it and know that's important, but I also have to trust that if I don't do it and I actually do the things that bring me joy and my genius. And I think theoretically, if a first-time entrepreneur could do that, they would also be very successful, but it's just so hard.
Yeah, it's just not as realistic. Yeah. And I think also it's why it's so important to find the right people to surround yourself with, because this only works if you find the people to do the things that you don't want to do. We should honestly do an entire episode, whether it's like journal style or whatever, on Zone of Genius, because I feel like there's so much to talk about there.
Yeah.
I want to cover two more of these before we hop to the second part of our doubleheader. Fourth belief is a great CEO must scale from idea to IPO. And the self-critique is, I didn't scale from 0 to 100, so I am not great. The reframe is, I love finding problems and building from scratch to flex my strengths, which are creativity, marketing, and sales. And I'm grateful to have partners who are A+ stage 2 CEOs. Now, just like to provide a little bit of color there, like I said before, I felt like a huge failure after moving out of the CEO role for Morning Brew. I had this story of what it meant to be a great CEO. You have an idea, you create a product, you prove that the product has value in the world, you scale that product into a business, and you take your business public. And because I didn't do that, I didn't feel like I was a successful founder or CEO. And even to this day, when I'm feeling my most self-conscious, I'll ask myself, have I said to the world and to myself that I love doing the 0 to 1 because I actually love doing it, or because it protects me from the reality that I'm just not great at scaling a company?
Yeah. Are you not great at scaling a company?
I think actually the short answer is I don't think I actually took the bet on myself to find out.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It feels like an unknown.
I actually think I don't know. And it's just a question of, at some point, will I want to know that? And it just comes back to the motivators of like, I don't know. We'll see based on what I'm enjoying doing.
Yeah. What do you want? One interesting reframe with all of these is they all seem to be framed through somebody else's eyes.
Yeah.
of what is the right, like there feels like a lot of you're trying to get the right or wrong answer versus what does Alex want? What do you want? Like, have you, like in that question, for example, do you want to be that CEO?
I think the hard answer there is I don't think I want to be that CEO, but I always just in the back of my head, I'm worried that it's an excuse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's a,
totally.
it's an excuse that because I don't think I'm capable of it, I've created this story that I'm not good, that it's not what I like doing and I could find someone else to do it.
Right. Yeah,
And
that
so I
makes
guess
sense. I mean, what if you, like, one thought for you, you've never actually scaled a company because, like you said, you maybe you didn't give yourself the chance to, is like, I wonder if you just held this whole conversation slightly more lightly and just said, like, I don't know. Today I'm not. Today it doesn't feel like that's what I want. Tomorrow I may want that. And if I feel like I want that, like one of the biggest things I've practiced with my coach is preference, like how to listen to my own preferences. And it's so hard and it takes a lot of time. And I'm still okay at it. But the easiest way is like, are you trying to get an answer right? Or are you trying to just do what you want? And if today you wake up, you're like, I don't think I want to be that. What about you? That may change, by the way. You have the right in a year to go,
totally.
Okay, I've launched 2 more companies. By the way, I have the same issue. I'm like, mine is a little bit different than yours, which is like I've seen guys like Rick or Jeff Bezos, and I'm like, it seems so cool to run a large scale organization with an amazing culture, with like this great campus. Like I get excited imagining myself in that. And then I like look at what I've actually done, and I'm really good at the 0 to 1. And I'm like, which part of me, like, am I lying to myself about what I want?
Exactly.
But I actually say I want that. I think I want Gateway X to be a 1,000-person company or a 10,000 person.
And the question, it sounds like the question that you still think through, and it's so hard to figure out, is like, what's driving that want?
Yeah, what's driving that want? Or mine's a little the reverse of yours. Am I okay settling at just launching a couple companies that get it to 8 figures in revenue, selling them, and moving on with my which is what I've sort of done to date. And maybe I don't actually want that. Maybe that's my ego that's wanting that. And maybe the reality of me wants to like build businesses, sell them, and just chill, you know?
Yeah, I think it's gonna be cool over kind of the lifetime of this show, just seeing just how your psychology changes around that question, because it's inevitably going to evolve. Okay, last one before we hop. 5th belief, skepticism and paranoia is a must to be a strong operator. The self-critique is, I'm too tolerant, which prevents me from building high-functioning businesses. The reframe is, a bomb-sniffing dog of business is key to find cracks before they become craters, but it doesn't have to be me. Again, assuming someone else can be the person who does it. And so just the thought process here was, my natural way is being level-headed, not being rattled, not thinking anything is that big of a deal, and we'll figure it all out.
Right.
I think this honestly comes from, again, just a place of experiencing a really big trauma in my life when I was 18. And so everything in relation to that is a nothing burger.
Totally.
And so I think it can be really good when it comes to regulating emotions and instilling confidence in people in a business and not making people feel like they're on a roller coaster. But I worry that numbing myself from anxiety and paranoia makes me susceptible to missing cracks forming before they turn into craters. So to me, in a perfect world, I'm someone that's constantly thinking about where are the bottlenecks and the cracks in a business, but I'm also staying optimistic and level-headed when running the business.
Yeah. This one feels like one of those classic false dichotomies that you have. Not you, people have, right? Like, okay, I'm going to, like, why can't both be true? Forget about someone else for a second. Why can't you spot the important issues and address them without feeling paranoia? Paranoia has an anxiety element to it, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
My dad would quote to me as a teenager, and only the paranoid survive. That was like the famous Andy Grove. So I had to I've worked on getting rid of that. I'm not sure again I fully have, but it almost feels like you have what everybody wishes for, which is I see the issues, I spot them, I see they're important, and then I like methodically drive to solve them. But I don't have to fret about why do you have to fret for that to? That feels like the false dichotomy part of it.
Yeah, I think the story is that you have to have that like tingly sense, that fret, like that feeling that something's always chasing behind your back to even get to a place where mentally you can find and think of these things.
Right.
And I think you're right. Like, I think you can probably just set up the right questions to ask in life or set aside the right time to find these things without feeling.
Well, the question
like
is, have you missed issues because you're too chill? Because it doesn't rattle you? Have you actually?
I mean, I don't think so. And I would say in like the scaling part of Morning Brew, it wasn't necessarily my job to think of them.
Right.
But I would say probably not.
Yeah. So to me, it's like if you're missing things, if you're genuinely aloof to the point where you're missing important stuff, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Pay more attention. But I don't know that you have to. And by the way, all of your things have a bit of an interesting underlying belief, which I think is common. So I just want to call it out, which is, I have to suffer to be successful.
Yeah. Yeah.
If this is not hurting me, if I'm not whipping myself, then I can't be a successful businessman. That's just not allowed.
It's two things. It's I have to suffer. Something has to be wrong for me to be successful. And I'm not as good as my co-founder at a number of things. And because I don't feel like I'm as good as my co-founder at a number of things, it means there's weakness in how I am as an entrepreneur.
Right. Exactly. And therefore, and then it explains why I'm maybe not as big as the other guy as a company or some of those other pieces to it.
Totally.
But I think like imagine, here's a fun one for you. Imagine like this is if I could go into your operating system, your hard drive, and delete those beliefs, who would you be?
I'll think about it.
How much more
I'll
powerful would you? If I just said no, you can have fun and be successful and make a lot of money and touch a lot of people, like,
yeah,
I don't know. Doesn't that feel great?
Yeah, no, it'd be pretty powerful. I told you I'm out next week, but when I'm on the beach, I'll make it a journaling prompt one day. This was a fun one. I like this episode. I like the format. But we want to hear what you think. So let us know what you think of this kind of like one idea, one track format, maybe a little bit shorter than our past ones. Shoot us an email at thecrazyones@morningbrew.com, and we'll catch you all next time.
And believe in yourself.
Believe in yourself. Later, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of The Crazy Ones. If you're an entrepreneur or a builder and want more great startup content, make sure to subscribe on our YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts.